All right, good evening, everybody. Unfortunately, you only get me tonight. For those who don't know me already, I'm John Foreman. I'm the Strategic Manager for Talent for Volleyball England, and I'm also the Indoor Performance Director, so I kind of directly oversee the indoor national teams. Normally, we would ideally have Kirk Pittman on here as the Beach Performance Director, but Kirk is currently coaching in Brazil. And Carrie would also normally be here as well, but unfortunately she got called away on an emergency, so you're left with me. We'll try to soldier on as much as possible. I intend to make this relatively short in terms of the kind of the presentation side of things to leave plenty of room for questions that might come in. If you do have a question, I ask that you use the Q&A function. Don't use the chat. I probably won't see that, but I'll try to keep my eye on the Q&A so we can keep this going, and I can hopefully answer whatever questions you have coming up. So with that, we'll get things rolling here. So I'll start off real quick with an update on what's going on with the beach. We just had our first of 4 national beach camps this past weekend at Kettering for the under 18 and under 20 ages, boys and girls across Saturday and Sunday. Weather wasn't obviously perfect for that, but everybody got through it, and all the feedback that I've heard has been quite positive. Yeah, there's things that we're going to look to make it better, but in terms of what we were looking for, generally accomplished things. This is partly development work, partly working towards selection, because we do have selection coming up in a little bit for the under 18 and under 20s for both NEVSA and CEV. So the NEVSA tournament that we'll be running here in England, I've actually got a little bullet there. It's going to be in June. I believe it's the last weekend of June. Don't hold me to that. That's going to be in Bridlington. So we're quite happy for that. Everybody who enters gets at least 2 teams. All the countries get at least 2 teams per gender per age group. And we could end up with 3 or 4 depending on who enters and how that all falls out. So we're really looking forward to that as a good opportunity for us to get more teams playing than would normally the case if we were only playing CEV, where we can only get 1 team per gender per age group. So we'll have selections for NEVSA. That'll be a good preparation tournament for the teams going to CEVs, for Euros. And those will happen in June for both the under 18s and the under 20s. We'll carry on these camps through May, June, and July. Obviously the July camp will be after we get done with the Euros, and the June camp will kind of split between the under 18 and under 20s. But we're still looking at interregional beach in the first half of August. So we'll also be working toward that as well. So lots of stuff to get going on there. I know Kirk is working with the beach development centers and the coaches there to keep them moving in the right direction and help the coaches up their skills and do the best job they can working with the athletes that they've got in their centers. So we're looking forward to seeing how that progresses over the summer, and there's going to be a BVDC championship as well. So that'll be a first for that, which we're also excited to see. It's kind of the inaugural event and where we can build off from there. So that's kind of the quick synopsis of what's going on in the beach space. I should note we also just recently did the selections for the under 22s, and that event's in June. They should be announced pretty soon. Kirk was just having some follow-up conversations before we finalized it and sent it over to our comms guys. But all right, so we'll move on to the indoor. So we're doing selection next week for the August camp. The August camp is the last week of August, so coming off of the bank holiday. We put it then to make sure it's clear of all of the beach stuff, because we're intentionally for these age group kids avoiding it as much as we possibly can, the conflicts and the between the beach and the indoor. It's been a frustration for a while now. There's not a lot we can do with something like the interregional tournament at the end of May, because we can't move that. We've tried. It just the availability of the NVC just prevents us being able to do that. But we do what we can around the rest of that to try to make sure that our international players are able to play beach during the summer, because so many of our best beach indoor players are also our best beach players. We want to make sure that they have the space to do that, and we want everybody else who wants to get in and give beach a good opportunity to also do that as well. Because frankly, from our total perspective, we think playing both surfaces is great for development for everybody. They present different challenges, and different challenges are a good thing. Kobe, no, there's a different tournament in October that Denise runs, and I'm forgetting the exact name of it. See, this is why you need the beach guy here and not just the indoor guy. But we're doing what we can. Going back to the indoor stuff. So for the August camp, we're doing selection for the under 17 and under 19 NEVZA, which again will be in October this year. So it'll be Denmark for the under 17s again, and it'll be Faroe Islands for the under 19s. And Kerry's already working on the logistics of that, which aren't looking like they're going to be a heck of a lot of fun. Just the transit options to Faroe are not spectacular, but I'm sure we'll come up with something in the end. So as I said, we're doing selection for August camp next week. August camp will be the selection camp for the NEVZA teams. So basically what we're selecting for the August camps are the group of athletes that we believe are legitimate contenders to be in the teams for October. And obviously the staffs will get together. We've got a lot of kids to go through. There's been a lot of coach referrals. There's a lot of players who weren't able to come to the Easter camp for one reason or another. Some were off of Cornacchia, some had school things. There were a couple that were either injured or ill. So we have to look at quite the lengthy list to make our selection. So it's not going to be easy decisions by any stretch of the imagination. Something that's working on the calendar is working with the other home nations in Ireland to run an under 18s event the first weekend of January. Details haven't been put together just yet. We don't know if we're going to run that at the MVC or somewhere else. We've got some meetings to be set up here in the next few weeks to start moving that forward. But we think it is a good opportunity to get our younger athletes some more international competitive experience, especially since the under 17s next year in the 2025 NEVZAs will be again playing for qualification to the under 18 Euros the following year. So we do want to get them, on the court competing against other international caliber teams to further that development and get them used to that sort of environment. The under 22s and seniors are kind of developing their schedules as well. Next year is the Euro qualifiers for the under 22s. So both the men and women are looking at how we can kind of create a campaign over the next, let's call it 16 months, give or take, in preparation for that. That'll be July. Don't think the dates have officially been set yet, but it's probably going to be first half to mid-July. The guys have already done a bit of under 22 stuff. A bunch of them played against Northern Ireland a couple weeks ago in some friendly matches. It went pretty well. And I know there's some other stuff in the plans, and kind of as that gets fleshed out, we'll definitely be sharing that information with everybody. So that's kind of the quick hit on where all that is, and like I said, I'll answer questions as they come in. So one of the things I do want to kind of talk about here is something that came up in our juniors coaches group, which we created at the end of last year to kind of bring all the juniors coaches together to share information with them on what we're doing in the national teams to help with coach education and coach development. And this month, or now technically last month, we had two of our more experienced coaches Steve McCune and Keith Trenham speak to the group about what we look for in national team athletes. And so Steve and Keith talked, and Steve came up with this set of bullets to share with the coaches what we look for. And they aren't in a specific order. I think they just wrote them down as they kind of came to them. And so obviously the first one, it probably is not going to surprise anybody. Height, and specifically height of action. You know, it's not just enough to be tall or taller. It's how high are you actually playing the game? You know, so what's your spike reach? What's your block reach? A shorter player can make up for not being as tall if they are very explosive in their jump. So that's why we're not. It's not strictly height, so to speak. It's that height of action, which takes into account their jumping ability. Athleticism, agility, coordination, physicality, power. And Steve was very specific here in producing control. Obviously, producing power is jumping, it's attacking, it's serving, it's generating power either to get off the floor, to move quickly, to spike the ball, that sort of thing. But it's also in receiving power. So if you get a ball spiked at you, or you get a hard serve coming at you, you're able to absorb that and control that and turn it into something useful for your team. Game sense, understanding space, understanding where you are on the court, the sense and the flow of the game, the interaction of you with your teammates, those sorts of things. Competitiveness, just mental strength, ball awareness and control. So what's a player's relationship with the ball? Are they comfortable with it? Do they have a friendly relationship with it, or do they duck and hide every time the ball comes in their direction? We don't see that a lot with people who get put forward to the national teams, but there are definitely gradations of players you could say clearly spend time with the ball, whether it's just sitting on their bed, setting the ball to themselves, or fiddling around before practice or after training, just by themselves against the wall or whatever. And just that touch and that feel and that comfort playing the ball. Adherence to task is staying focused on what you need to do in the moment. And it's also being prepared to learn and adapt. Volleyball is a constantly adaptive sport. Nothing happens the same over and over again. You always see something slightly different. I think there's an old saying that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. There's a bit of that in volleyball. Obviously, sequences will happen. Somebody serves past that spike. Okay, that's a familiar sequence, but every little bit of that chain is going to be slightly different every single time you go back. So it's the ability to make those adaptations, to understand what's happening in the flow of the game, to make adjustments based on what's happening in your side, what's happening on the other side, looking for opportunities and all that, and seeing what the other team's trying to do to you. Resilience. Volleyball's a tough sport in terms of errors. There's lots of them. There always will be. There's no such thing as a perfect game. Nobody ever plays a perfect game. And we have to have athletes who are able to deal with being in that sort of environment where a mistake can be significant, but they need to know that they have to go back and shake that one off, goldfish mentality, and make the next play. This is the big piece of mental toughness in our sport is, for example, the other team's going to serve you because they're targeting you. Are you going to stand in there and receive the next ball? Everybody in the gym knows that you're going to get set this ball because it's an out-of-system play or whatever. Are you going to be able to go up there against a big, well-formed block and do something, tool the block, get a kill, put the other team under pressure? So there's that resilience, dealing with that mental toughness and overcoming all these bumps and hurdles that the game naturally throws at you, and life in general. Team player, obviously, it's 6 people on the court at any given time, and a whole bunch of other people that are in your squad in training, supporting you during a match, that you're supporting during a match if you're not on the court. Are you the sort of player that's helping your teammates be better? That's what we're looking for. And then self-regulation and personal management. So that's kind of the other stuff that goes around it. Which, how do you handle yourself emotionally? Are you reliable? Are you the sort of athlete that, when we tell, okay, we need you to be down ready to go at 9:15, that you're going to be down there ready to go at 9:15, or somebody's going to have to be chasing you up or constantly reminding you to watch the video that got posted to the team, those sorts of things. So this is just a list that Steve and Keith put together, and we think it's pretty representative. And I didn't put this in here, but when Steve presented to the coaches group, the overlay he put on top of all this was potential. So I've been saying for a few months now in the coaches group and elsewhere, the younger an athlete is, the more we're looking at their potential. And considering we're mostly looking at under 18, under 19, under 20 type kids coming through our pathway, we're looking almost entirely at potential, because our ultimate objective is to identify future prospects and develop future prospects for the senior national teams. So if we're seeing somebody at 12, 13, 14, we're trying to think about their path toward when they're 28, for example. 28 is the average age of an Olympian. So that's a long pathway, which is why we're not worried about where an athlete is in their technical skills and things like that, how good a player they are right now at 13 years old, at 15 years old. We're looking at, do they have the tools and the ability to develop over the next dozen years to be the kind of player that could be playing in our senior national team and possibly playing in the Olympics someday. So that's where we're trying to go in all this. And something I want to point out very specifically with this is, you'll notice nowhere in here is there any kind of reference to a position or to specific skills. None. And this is something that came up in the conversation the other day. We're not worried about what position a kid plays coming into the pathway. We don't care. We ideally want to see them play all the positions when they're young, and not really specialize until probably they're around, say, 16. At that point, that's probably a reasonable place to start specializing. But even there, what may be good specialization at their club level or at their school level, it might be different for us at the national team level or at a uni level. You often see player position changes when you reach that point as well. So we're really harping on this idea that people don't get locked into positions at young ages, for example, because they're the tall kid that gets stuck in the middle. We need tall kids who can set. We need tall kids who can play on the right side, on the left side, and in the middle. So we need all of those skills. And the further up you go in the ladder of performance, the more players need to be well-rounded. Yes, you are a specialist in a position when you're on the senior national team, but you're good. I think this was quoted as coming from Doug Beal. Don't hold me to this, but you have to be. The idea is you have to be good at everything, but you have to be excellent at like two things. For example, so an outside hitter, you might be excellent at attacking through position 4 and serve reception. Those are being the major skills in that position. So these are the things that we're looking for. This is why we harp on this idea of not having specialization, not having fixed positions as players are young, and pushing that off as late as we can. Yes, we understand that once we go to an under 18 Euro qualifier or something like that, we're going to have positions. We kind of don't have a choice there, but we want to bring along players who are as flexible and adaptable and can execute skills in all areas of the sport, and bring that forward with them. Because if you go watch professionals, if you go watch international teams, everybody on the court can set. Everybody on the court can attack, can block. Okay, maybe not the libero because he's not allowed, but you get the idea. So there it is. I'll slide on to the next thing. I shared this slide before. but I just want to reinforce it in terms of what we're doing at national team camps. And this is both beach and indoor. Performance focused, not skill development, because we just don't have enough contact time with them to be their primary source of skill development. It has to happen at the club level, at the school level, in the day-to-day stuff that these kids are doing. The sessions are shorter, more intense. It used to be that the weekend national camps were basically 3 sessions of 3 hours over the course of a weekend. We're going more along the lines of we're now doing mainly, kind of in the 4-day camp. So Easter camp was 4 days, not for the younger ones because they were in a slightly different position, but for the older ones, it was 2 sessions a day for 4 days. We did go a little bit shorter in one of the sessions on the Friday and the Monday, and that's something we'll look at when we plan things out, because we don't want to kill them while we've got them there. But we do want to be able to push them at the right level of intensity to show them, where they need to be playing, and we're also where the conditioning needs to be. We're doing a lot of off-court education stuff. Those of you who heard from your kids hopefully heard that they did a lot of stuff off court. So our older groups did at least one video session every day, looking at different things. For the older group, we had John Cornish, who's one of our comms guys, come in and talk to them about social media and how can they use it to their benefit. We got some feedback from them. Our physio, who was on for camp, talked to all the groups about kind of what their needs are when they're away from us. A common theme was they need help with S&C. So it's something that we're very seriously looking at how we can kind of support. We obviously can't give individual customized programs to every kid in the pathway. We just don't have that resource at this time, but we can at least move people along the direction of knowing better where the things that they can work on and how they can do that. And so every camp, we're always going to have things that we're going to factor into these education pieces for when they're off the court and or in the hotel. And feedback is a big thing for us, just perpetually. We did a lot of feedback at Easter camp. We'll do feedback coming off of the selection meetings we do next week. For those who aren't selected, we'll do loads more feedback when we have them at August camp. I know feedback was a big part of what they did this past weekend with the beach. Carrie's been working on getting that stuff out to everybody. So it's a mantra of ours right now is we want to make sure that the players and their coaches back at their clubs are getting the same message in terms of, okay, this is where we see the athlete at, and this is where we see their prospects for development. We've got a new athlete management system that we're working to put into place. We're doing the training for that right now and starting to look at how we can get things structured. And that's going to help us with this because there'll be a lot of exciting ways that we can share information, and we can also collect information from all the pathway athletes to help, just kind of more holistic year-round development take place. So we're really excited to get that up and running. And I expect it to be in place for the indoor teams by the time we get to August camp, if not a little bit sooner, maybe. And there's possibility we could get the beach kids on it a little bit earlier than that, depending on how things progress. So with that, that was all I had in terms of kind of big bits and pieces. So any questions you guys have, feel free to fire away. Like I said, I'll do my best to answer them. All right. So we've got, can the VE plans for things like S&C be shared down to club level so we can give our players the best chance by adopting the VE ethos? So first off, we have to develop what that VE ethos is. And partly that'll involve our chief medical officer, Dave Navala, because he kind of oversees all of that wellness piece for us. But as I was just kind of alluding to, it is a big thing because one of the observations I made at Easter camp was we needed more functional strength, functional ability, dynamic strength. Just looking at the kids on the court, especially in the younger groups. Yeah, there was some decent height, and there were some kids who obviously had played for a little while, but when you compare us, and this is quite clear when you look at our under 18s playing a couple weeks ago against the likes of Spain in the second round of the Euro qualifiers. Spain was a little bit taller than we were. Not Germany was massive. They were way taller than we were. Spain was a little bit taller than we were, but if you looked at them, they were physically superior. They're much more physical than we were. And that's something that, you know, we need to address within our pathway. And it's, like I said, it is a major priority item for us. It's just a question of doing it right, because we don't want to put out a bunch of stuff out there and then have kids, you know, get injured, do things wrong, that sort of thing. It can be a very high risk sort of area if you don't handle it properly. Any camps available for those born 2011? So first off, I would mention futures. We did have a couple of 11s in Easter camp, and we do look at them on a selective basis when they get referred into us. We just are conscious of there can be some significant differences just even between a 2011 and a 2009. But, you know, again, it's different. We did take the 2011s that we took to Easter camp. We had seen at futures, so we knew where they were physically and with their game and how they kind of fit in with older kids. So we knew they were kind of a bit of a known quantity. But we're not excluding 2011s right now. We're just cautious with them because we don't need to, there's no need to rush them into things at this stage. To confirm, there are no U20 ladies girls camps August this year. I cannot confirm that because Maria, our senior / under 22 coach, has suggested that there might be. So as I mentioned earlier, the seniors, their calendar is kind of in development right now. So there is the possibility that there will be something with the U22s. Maybe we talked about doing it in conjunction with the under 18s and under 20s, or maybe kind of coming off of the back of it. We just have to look at, you know, people's availability and things like that. But like I said, once things firm up, we'll be able to put that information. Can you clarify what's happening to last year's under 19s? I'm assuming that was born 2006. And I don't know okay, I'll address it from both sides. So in January, when we were doing selection for Easter camp, Simon Loftus, who's our men's coach, was in there, and he was very clear that he wants any of the 2006 guys to be part of the U22 cohort moving forward, because he wants to be working with them and developing them toward the U22 cycle and all of that. I was fine with that, and I remain fine with that because Simon and those guys have been very active doing things, and that's going to be a stronger training environment and competition environment than an under 21 would be for those 06s. On the women's side, the women haven't been as active so far, so we haven't made that commitment as yet. But if Maria decides, you know, tomorrow that she's got some things lined up in August and through the second half of the year, and she wants all the 06s with her, the way Simon does, and it looks like a similar situation where that group would be better served being, you know, with the older players in the under 22 camp, then we'll take the same approach with the girls. We're not doing that right now, but there is the possibility for that to happen down the line. All right. will the VE team be scouting under 18 players into regionals? So yes, we will have people at interregionals. The thing I've told the coaches is, as I said, we're doing selection next week. That doesn't mean there isn't the room for one or two kids that we see at interregionals that we haven't seen already in some fashion to add to that list to invite as well. But because of timelines, if we had waited till after interregionals, it would have pushed everything out a further month, shortening up people's ability to make plans and all of that. So we didn't want to do that. And the thing that I would say is, and I said this to the coaches, why would they wait for interregionals for us to see the players if they thought the players were good enough to be considered for the national team? If that makes sense. They should have been letting us know ahead of that so we could get those kids on our radar. We don't want to have to wait 6 months. I mean, say there was somebody that an interregional coach knew about in November and didn't put forward that could have been at Easter camp, then that's a fail in the system. So that's why we're encouraging the coaches, and we were quite firm with them that we wanted referrals in by last night. But like I said, we understand that there's going to be situations where, for one reason or another, somebody didn't get on the list, and we've got the availability to do that as well. August camp for under 17, under 19 only. Well, it's for selection for under 17, under 19 NEVSA. Yes. As I said, there might be some linkages with the under 22s, depending on what the senior coaches want to do. But August is going to be a NEVSA selection camp, so that's going to be the focus. Something else came in. Yes, it's being recorded. I already addressed the 2006s. Regionals. Okay, after selection for the VE pathway, when athletes go to a high-level volleyball uni such as Essex, Durham, NOTS, do they get any funding, perhaps certain scholarships? The funding is all from the uni's perspective. So there are scholarships available. I couldn't tell you from year to year what that looks like. You'd have to actually have conversations with the coaches there, because they're the ones who have all those details. We don't have anything currently that's a program. Like, I'm thinking of the support programs. We have DICE for those who are going to college, in that 16 to 18-year-old. There is TAS for older athletes, although if you're at uni, especially at one of the performance programs, TAS is a bit redundant because you get a lot of those support pieces there. So it tends to be more for the beach athletes than the indoor. Not that we necessarily have to keep it that way, but yeah, it's mainly the support and the funding and whatnot would come from the unis themselves. If the plan is to give feedback to players not selected for the August camp, was feedback given to players not selected for the Easter camp? It was given to their coaches. So since coaches refer players, we don't know if coaches are in communication with the players and the parents to do the referrals. All the feedback goes back to the coaches. So we don't want to be in a situation where a coach put an athlete in without that athlete or their parents knowing it, and then us sending them a piece of feedback that they weren't expecting. So yes, the coaches who submitted athletes ahead of time got that feedback. Now, there were a lot of athletes on the boys' side that we just couldn't take into the camp because we'd already done selection and we're already full up. They're on the list for consideration toward the August camp. Those coaches were told exactly what was going on. It's like because of when we had to do selection and of how many athletes we had to go through at that time already, we just couldn't go through all these other ones that came in after that. But like I said, they're on the list for the August camp. You mentioned inaugural beach camp tournament in August. The inaugural thing that I talked about, well, there's kind of two. One is NEVSA, which we're hosting. That's in June. The inaugural thing is the Beach Volleyball Development Centers, the BVDCs. They're going to have a championship tournament in, I'm pretty sure, July. I think that's when they finalized it. Although I'm not the expert on that. This is where I wish Carrie was here, or Kirk. They could give you the specifics. The August camp is something Denise Austin runs. Forgetting the name of it, but it's somewhere like around the 14th and 15th, I believe, something along those lines, unless it's been moved. That's the notorious thing on the beach side, is stuff does get moved. But hopefully it's pretty stable right now. Let's see what else. If possible, for pathway training days, not class 4 and 5-star UKBT. We don't really look at UKBT when we schedule our stuff. That's a separate thing altogether. And actually, we might have had our dates set before the UKBT set. I'm not sure on that, because we had our date set a while ago. We do our best, but like I said, beach is a moving target a lot of times, so we can't necessarily rely on nailing things down with everybody else, because you never know what ends up happening. Will 2006 qualify for under 19 NEVSA on the girls' side? Currently, the answer is yes. They're being considered for August camp, and therefore for selection for the under 19s. At the minute, the August camp for 17 the under 22 thing, I believe you're referring to the guys. There's a tentative date out there. Yeah, there's a chance that will change. We don't have those finalized yet. So again, the same sort of thing. But for players who are in that younger age group, we're going to want them in the younger. If players that are being considered to be on the NEVSA teams will need to be in the NEVSA selection camp. That's the way it's going to be. It's up to Simon and his group in terms of which way where that camp ends up. I know it's on his mind though. Which age group will the 08s kids be in? That's partly going to depend on the kid and the whole process. So we're not just cutting things at certain ages necessarily. The 2008s are eligible to play under 17s, and they're all, as a result, obviously also eligible to play under 19s. So we're going to look at the whole package when we decide, where we do the selection breaks. And it won't strictly be on year lines necessarily. It could be different for different athletes. Can a coach recommend a player? Yes. All the coaches in the Facebook group know how to do it. There's over 200 of them now. And we posted about it a number of weeks ago. And I keep referring to it in the coaches group in terms of, when we got deadlines and such, like for this week for selection and all that. So yeah, if your coach isn't aware of the recommendation process, they guarantee they know somebody who is, and if not, they can reach out to us at talent@volleyballengland.org. How are coaches being contacted for nominations? I don't know if you mean, are we reaching out to them or after the fact? As I was just saying, we are constantly saying to the coaches, if you have somebody that we need to consider, refer them. Any time of year, doesn't matter. If it's past when we've done selection for the next camp, then they'll just be on the list for whatever comes after that. So it's a rolling sort of thing. Any other questions out there? Yeah, I think I've missed any. Like that. Which back. All right, come on. Beach camps class with 2 of the 4-star UKBTs. Superb opportunities for our beach athletes to compete against adults. So it would be good if they could avoid in the future. Yes, ideally, everybody is available to do everything. The reality of scheduling is, like I said, I don't remember the timing of when we set our dates versus when UKBT set their dates. So if we set ours, you could easily just as easily say, well, UKBT should have avoided our dates. You know, I don't want to get into that kind of match, but from our perspective, we need the kids in training and selection environment to get a good look at them, playing with different people, because we don't select a pair. We select 2 athletes to put together. So it's not who's been playing really well together on UKBT. It's who are the 2 athletes that we want to send as a pair. And obviously we have to look at reserves and where do they fit in and all of that. So yes, UKBT is good experience, but we need to see more than just that competition, because we need to factor in other parts of the whole project, not just tournament results. When we find out who's invited to August camp, as I mentioned, we're going to do selection next week for both groups. So we intend to get the invitations and the feedback out as quickly thereafter as possible. As I said, there's a lot, especially on the boys' side, because there were so many boys that got put forward for Easter camp, that we couldn't review at the time, that have gotten pushed forward now for the August camp. I think for the 07s and 08s, there's something like 75 boys that the staff is going to have to review, and there's I think 40 of the 09s and younger. So it's going to take some work, and there's a few others that we have to add to the list that to extend that as well. So just give us a little bit of grace in terms of being able to get through all that. What months do the camps take place? If you're talking about the indoor camps, so we've got the big ones are currently scheduled end of August, end of December, Easter, not Easter weekend like it was this year, the weekend prior to Easter, because we don't want the Cornacchia conflicts next year. We'll also have weekend holding camps for the teams that are going to Nevza in October. And we're looking at possibly doing something in February as well, but that's kind of tied in with some funding we're trying to get. So we're not gonna say anything firm about that at this stage. But if we get the funding that we're hoping to get, then there's an exciting opportunity that we can take advantage of there. And it won't cost anybody anything, which would be amazing. I've been told there's going to be a futures camp. That going to a futures camp help me get identified. Certainly going to a futures camp is a way to be seen, because national team coaches run those camps. So it's like I said, it's one of the many ways. So coach referrals, seeing you at last eights or even just at any juniors event that our staff might be at, because a lot of our coaches are also juniors coaches out there for different clubs and whatnot. Excuse me. But that is one way, and it's a good way to work with some of the national team coaches too, to kind of get an idea of the things that we're trying to encourage younger athletes to develop. If you're already on the pathway under 19s, do you need to be referred? No, you're already on the list. Right. And oh, come on. So, any other questions? So just so everybody knows, the plan is to do these things, these town hall things, basically quarterly to keep people updated. Excuse me. And we can, at different points a year, it'll make sense to focus more on different things. For example, it's too bad that Kirk and Carrie couldn't be here for this one, because it would have been nice to probably go a little deeper into the beach stuff than I've got as much awareness of as they do. But we'll keep blending them in and mixing them. So make sure to keep tuning in. Question: one selection for CEV Nevza is confirmed following all camps. Are there prep camps? So I just mentioned, yeah, that we're planning to do a weekend camp for each of the age groups the weekend before the tournament. So the under 17s will go to Denmark the second weekend of October. I got a sneeze coming. So they would do training the week before that, and the under 19s are the last week of October in Faro. They would do training the week before that. We're currently working on where, because the MVC is not available those weekends. Have all the athletes who now only eligible for under 22s, but we're on the pathway, been contacted. They were all the boys were contacted about, you're now part of the under 22 mix. Simon is still working on what he's trying to do with that whole group. He's obviously been in touch with some, but I talked with him week before last about making sure that everybody gets some kind of communication from him. So he's working on that. Hopefully it won't be too much longer before people start hearing. Could emails be sent of players to VE Talent if they don't attend many less? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Referrals can come from any club, anytime, anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're playing in last eights. You don't even necessarily have to be playing in VE competitions. If you're playing regionally or whatever. If you think you match the sort of physical and developmental profile that I kind of talked about earlier, then that's fine. That's fine. London, Yorkshire, London have friendly interregional training plan May 18th. Class with the next beach camp. Are the coaches aware of this? Again, I don't. I mean, the beach camps dates have been out for 3 months now. So I don't know when the interregional teams plan these things. This is the tricky part of May, and this is our constant frustration about having IRC so late. But like I said, we haven't been able to move it to earlier like we would. Hopefully, somewhere in the future we'll be able to do that. But the reality is that's what we're dealing with right now. Question regarding the 22 girls. Well, I assume you're talking about contacted about being under 22s. No, because we haven't said that the 06s are strictly in the under 22 category. All the 06s that have been in the pathway are under consideration for August camp right now. So we'll be looking at them all next week, and they will hear one way or another after that. Anything else? Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, then we can wrap things up. I'll make sure this recording gets posted to our YouTube account as quickly as we can. That way, you know, if you missed anything, you can go back. And if there are any pressing questions, obviously you can always email us, the talent inbox, talent@volleyballengland.org, and we'll do our best to answer. But like I said, the big thing we've got coming up is those selection meetings next week. And then we'll do our best to get those decisions and any feedback coming out of that out as quickly as possible. Because, you know, we ourselves and everybody else involved, we know we want to give people plenty of lead time. So, alrighty. With that, we'll wrap it up for this evening. Hopefully you have a good rest of your night and enjoy your volleyball. Good night all.